you're very good at predicting and understanding where market rents are going to be, which I would say is like 50 to 70% of what's going to make a deal work in most areas. Los Angeles is a place where it's completely different.
Well, I mean, I actually things are a little different now, but I would say that accurately predicting pro forma rents is the single most important skill probably in investing in apartments, at least the way that we do it, because you can, given all of the other inputs, whatever purchase price, construction costs, whatever, you can make a deal look great by being, $200 over a month per unit, or you can convince yourself to buy something you shouldn't. And obviously, the other alternative is you end up like you guess low by $200 and you don't buy the stuff you should have bought. And so that's actually always been an obsession of mine. And to this day, I mean, we have a management portfolio where we manage 1,100 units, 400 that we own, and then 700 that we manage for third-party owners. And there are a few of our customers who prefer to set rents for themselves, but for almost that entire portfolio, I set the rents personally, both for the asking rents and for renewals.
And is that where you just don't trust anyone else, or you feel like that's your special superpower?
There's a couple of things going on. One is the most important reason is that I believe that I am better positioned than anyone else in the company to understand the trade-offs of rent versus occupancy on a building-by-building basis. So, I mean, obviously, great neighborhood, great building, tons of demand, you're probably willing to push it a little bit and risk the vacancy.
Yeah.
And on the other end of the spectrum, probably not. But other things come into play too. Like, for example, a building, we manage a lot of small buildings. And
like
so
small, when you say small, what do you mean?
I think the average the average building size is like 8 to 9 units.
Okay.
So we had like 140 tiny buildings. And so you can easily get into these situations where an owner has had a bunch of vacancy on one unit or a couple of units up to now. Maybe you got them filled and now you have another vacancy coming. And I feel like I'm best positioned. I mean, obviously the owner himself or herself, but they're paying us to do it. So in our organization, I'm best positioned to understand, okay, this guy has had a bunch of vacancy already this year. Like maybe let's not push it on this next rent to try to get the unit full. So that's why I set all of the pricing. But a positive externality, let's say, of setting all the pricing is that I have a very granular view on what prices can be for all different types of units, but primarily for renovated ones in the neighborhoods in which we do business. And of course, we have always filtered that information back into our acquisition process.
And so, because you obviously, like you said, you have very small niche mom and pop, I would say, size buildings, but Los Angeles is primarily mom and pop, small base buildings. That's the majority of the units.
Yeah, they're small buildings. And I should say, I mean, we recently signed up to manage an 85 unit building.
Wow.
So we're definitely, we have I'm sure we'll talk more about this, but we have got renovated 110 buildings in Los Angeles since 2008. And among other things, what you learn from doing that is you learn that there's a special set of skills that are involved in taking a building from 0 occupancy up to 100 after it's been built or renovated. And so we're very good at that. And so increasingly we are being asked by developers of new buildings to come in and do that lease up process and then manage. So I think we will ultimately end up managing larger and larger buildings. But yeah, for sure, the legacy portfolio is small ones. And the reason is, and as we were talking about before, with our acquisition process, we were always, when we're doing these rehab deals, we were ruthless about sticking to very high unlevered yield on cost targets. Okay. And we can talk about why. But the result of that was the large buildings tend to be owned by sophisticated owners who hire sophisticated brokers who hold sophisticated sale processes and extract maximum price. And so there's no alpha. There's no extra yield you can get there. The game that we were playing for a very long time was buying these much smaller buildings that were owned by mom and pops who had completely mismanaged them in many cases, who hired like some condo broker from Reseda, no offense to Reseda, who I don't even know if they have condos. I've been saying that for years. I don't know if they have condos in Reseda.
It works.
Some condo broker from Reseda because it's like, their friend's cousin or whatever. And that person doesn't have a buyer's list. Right, so they just slap it up on the, they don't know how to price it.
Yeah.
They come up with some crazy price. They slap it up on the MLS because they don't know who to call. And our business for a very, very long time was basically just picking off those mispriced assets because that's where the excess yield was coming from.
Why do you think LA is such a sporadic market when it comes to agents? Like, because in a perfect world, right? If people were logical, they would work with the best agent who had the biggest buyers list, who did the most amount of deals, and like logically that would make the most sense.
Yeah.
Why do you think LA is such a relationship driven / almost like this 1,000,001 different agents and people?
I think there's two different things going on at least. Well, one is, and probably most importantly, like these are, for the people who own them, these are like very large assets, right? And so there is a large amount of trust that's involved in hiring someone. And so when confronted with the choice between like your brother's best friend from growing up, let's say, or some stranger who by all accounts is an active broker, but like you'd have never met this person before, it's kind of understandable that people would choose that some portion of sellers would choose the person who they like trust because of that connection. Another thing, and it's so obvious to me that at various times I've like come reasonably close to trying to turn this into a business, is that the data about who the best brokers are is not available to regular people. And so
it's not even available to us, really.
Well, I mean, but for me, like when I'm thinking about who to sell a building, I'm like, particularly on a small building, it's like, I'm going to go on the MLS. I'm going to figure out the geographical area. I'm going to search for transactions over the last couple of years for this size building and look at who's the most actively selling these things. And I'm like, that person probably knows who the buyers are, right? But I have access to that information because I'm a broker and I know how to use the MLS. And you can do the same thing on CoStar for larger buildings. But like that information is just not available to a regular consumer. And so how do they even know that they're supposed to call broker X if they have a building that's that guy's specialty or that woman's specialty?